Hello, everybody. Hoping you can hear me. Hello, hello. How is everyone today? Welcome to my first official Lovecast. Hello, everyone in the chat. I see you all in there. Let me just give you a quick refresh here. Make sure you are able to hear me. Please let me know before we get started. Hi, Morgan. I guess you guys are able to hear me. Okay, awesome. All right, let's get started. Welcome, everyone. Again, this is my official first Lovecast podcast live stream. We are going to be discussing today the avoidant lover, the avoidant attachment style. Okay, this is something a lot of you, I posted a poll to see what you wanted to talk about today, and a lot of people said mostly relationships. So I thought, okay, let's take a look at the avoidant attachment. So there is a book called Attached, The New Science of Adult Attachment, How It Can Help You Find and Keep Love, and it's by Amir Levine and Rachel Heller. So there are 3 attachment styles, basic attachment styles that they have discovered in relationships. And those 3 are the avoidant attachment style, the anxious attachment style, and then the secure attachment style. So I thought we would start tonight with the avoidant attachment style, because I feel like a lot of you are probably or have experienced the avoidant attachment lover, the avoidant lover. So we'll take a couple of excerpts out of the book to talk a little bit about this. I know some of you are already aware of it, and some of you have probably never heard of it, or you haven't gone in deep. So we'll address that a little bit here. And just remember, before we get started, I'm going to do the podcasts every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, 7 p.m. Eastern, 6 Central, 5 Mountain, 4 Pacific. And then I will make an attempt to also do them on Saturdays at noon. Okay, so tonight we're going to talk about the avoidant, and then Wednesday we will talk about the anxious attachment style, and then Friday we'll talk about the secure attachment style and how each of these look, how they play out. They can also give you some insight into if maybe this is a style that you have, or a dynamic that you have felt, and or if it's someone that you are connected to, like a partner. Okay. Yes, there are different types of avoidant, as well as like fearful, anxious, dismissive, all that. But we're just going to keep it real simple with tonight's podcast, and I'll go for an hour, and then I'm going to leave the chat up and live stream for a while so you guys can, chat amongst yourselves and what have you. Okay. So let's see how we're going to get into this. So there's a lot of stories in this book, and I don't know if you've come across this book before, but there are some deactivating strategies that an avoidant will use, okay, in relationships in order to, it's kind of like a runner chaser energy from what I've gathered. The closer that you try to get, the further that the avoidant will try to run. And it does tend to create a dynamic in the relationship. Even if you come into the relationship securely attached, it can turn into, if you get involved with an avoidant, the avoidant will run, and that can create anxiety within you, and that can cause you to chase after an avoidant who then runs even further. And generally they tell you that when that's a dynamic that's playing out, the best way to deal with that situation is to stop chasing and to retreat. So some common deactivating strategies for an avoidant is where they will say or think to themselves that they're not ready to commit, but they will stay together with their partner nonetheless, sometimes for years. Another deactivating strategy that avoidant will use is they will focus on small imperfections in you, like the way you talk, dress, the way you eat, or anything else, and allow that to get in the way of your romantic feelings. Okay, now some of you might relate to some of this yourself, and some of you might be seeing this in a partner. Another common deactivating strategy that an avoidant will do is they will pine after an ex, which is called like the phantom ex. The fourth thing that they will do is they will flirt with other people. It's a hurtful way to introduce insecurity into the relationship. Another thing they will do also is they won't say I love you. But at the same time, they will imply that they have feelings towards you, but they won't typically tell you that they love you, or they will kind of roundabout in a way tell you that they love you, but maybe not really be direct with it. There might be indirect with it. The other thing that they'll do is they will pull away when things are going well, like not calling for several days, or not calling for several days after an intimate connection that you've had, right? So these are all deactivating strategies. Another thing that they will do, which I find this interesting, is they will tend to form relationships with an impossible future. So for instance, for example, like if you are married, or if generally, like if you're already in some type of situation that would cause an extreme obstacle or block, them knowing that there would be no way for you to overcome whatever this obstacle is, they will intentionally form that relationship with you, because it's almost as if they know that it can't go anywhere, okay? Which can tend to get you stuck in a lot of ways. They have a tendency to check out mentally when talking, when you're both communicating. And you might notice at times when you're having a conversation with your person, and then they just check out. And you're like, did you hear me? Or are you listening to me? Or am I getting through? Hello, McFly? Anything going on? So there's a tendency to check out mentally. They will also keep things secret or leave things foggy in order to maintain their feeling of independence. They will also tend to avoid physical closeness. For example, not wanting to share the same bed, not wanting to be physically intimate, maybe walking several strides ahead of you. They find a way to put distance or create distance. If you are busy with something like up to your neck in work, you may find that's when they're calling you, because you are unable to really answer the phone. They'll create distance by tending to stay involved with you mostly through texting or through apps, or they will tend to if they don't call you, they'll generally give some kind of reason, like their phone broke, or they lost your number, or they'll talk on the phone with you for a little while, and then all of a sudden they suddenly have another phone call coming in, and you may notice this happens, or they have a set time period for the length of the call that they are willing to have with you. So it's almost as if they will have a tendency, or a set time just to speak with you. In other words, they'll give you just minimal amount of time to stay connected, but then they're busy, or they've got something to do, or they're very busy and they'll say they'll call you back. These are deactivating strategies that, and I'm sure there's more. And if there's others that you might think, or you know about, or you've experienced, feel free to leave them in the chat or in the comments. These deactivating strategies are basically like a protective mode, okay? And they have a tendency to do this because there's a fear of getting too close and then being abandoned. And it really never has anything to do with you, unless there has been a dynamic in the relationship where there has been closeness, and then something may have happened where they may not feel safe. And then when they feel like it's safe to open up, then something happens where they don't feel safe, and then they go back and forth. So you may feel at times like you're on a roller coaster in this relationship, or in connections with people like this. So to get into a little bit more, there's a thing here called the Phantom X, okay? This is a phenomenon where your person has an attachment still to an ex whom they or may have been abandoned by. That every person that they get involved with, they attach that ex's qualities to you in some way. Now, I don't know if you've experienced this or not. So what I'm trying to get at here, the Phantom X kind of thing is a difficult thing, because some of you may not even know about this, or you may not know about an ex, which can cause you to be really confused about the relationship. And if you do know that there is an ex, but you find out that your person still kind of feels like they keep trying to recreate the relationship with that ex through other romantic relationships, or in a relationship with you, that's when you might actually think it has something to do with you, but it really doesn't. This book talks a lot about the person who actually is dealing with this issue. Okay, it's interesting because avoidant attachment styles are also, well, Joanne, not see. Here's the thing about narcissism. Okay, like a fully diagnosed narcissist, it's a very rare thing for that to actually happen. But that's something that's more done by like a psychiatrist or a psychologist. You know, everybody has avoidant or anxious attachment traits in one way or another. And it doesn't necessarily make that person a narcissist. So it's better to look more at the character traits of a person to try to understand it. There's nothing you can do to fix an avoidant. That's something that if you're involved in a relationship with them, that's something that if they're not aware of, it's helpful to make them aware of that. But you cannot, the more love that you try to give an avoidant and the more security you try to give, it it kind of actually makes them push away even more. And that actually would just cause more problems. Usually when you're involved with a person who is suffering from an avoidant attachment style, the best thing that you can do is to stop chasing. But if you have an anxious attachment style, which we'll get into on Wednesday, which is avoidant and anxious are insecure attachment styles. So if you're anxious and you're involved with an avoidant, you have to actually heal from your anxious attachment, where you also have a fear of abandonment. So that's the one thing that both styles have in common. The anxious fears being abandoned, the avoidant fears being abandoned. So the anxious will push further and grab on even tighter to not be abandoned, and the avoidant will just not get too deep so as to not be abandoned. Do you understand? They have the same fear, but both of them approach it very differently. One doesn't, and one does heavily. And that's why you tend to have the runner-chaser dynamic. Because if you've ever noticed, if you have the anxious attachment style, when you have pulled your energy back, which is what we talk about in the readings, when you pull your energy back, you will tend to notice that your avoidant will then come back towards your way. And some of you will stay in these long-term relationships with this type of a relationship and realize at some point, how come every time I pull my energy back, this person comes back into my life? They want to have love. They want to be there and be a part of a great loving partnership, but they have a great fear. And so they will tiptoe back in and try to resume the relationship again. And then you will, if you haven't healed your anxious attachment, then you will smother and do as much as you can to try to keep that person there. And that scares them, and then they run away. And that is the dynamic. And so it's imperative for both attachment styles to become securely attached. Okay? But since today we're just talking about the avoidant attachment, that I feel like we should focus on that the most. Let's see. I'm going to just pick out a couple of excerpts from okay. So here's what this says, right? Tapping into the secure mindset, creating a secure base for your partner and especially for yourself. One of the most important roles we play in our partners' lives is providing a secure base, creating the conditions that enable our partners to pursue their interests and explore the world in confidence. Okay, so the following secure behaviors look like this. Be available. Respond sensitively to their distress. And this is for those of you who are in this relationship and want to stay in it. You don't have to fix anyone. It's not your job. Okay, but if you don't have to stay in it. You could seek a more secure partner. You have every right to do that, and you would probably be best doing that for yourself, because securely attached people can pretty much gel with anxious or avoidant or secure relationships. And other people. So respond sensitively to their distress. Allow them to be dependent on you when they feel the need. Check in with them from time to time. Provide comfort when things go wrong. Don't interfere. Provide behind-the-scenes support for their endeavors. Help in a way that leaves them with the initiative and the feeling of power. Allow them to do their own thing without trying to take over the situation. Micromanage or undermine their confidence and abilities, and encourage. Provide encouragement and be accepting of their learning and personal growth goals. Boost their self-esteem. Now, I know a lot of you are kind of like, I am not doing that. Well, that's fine. You're not obligated to fix your relationship by yourself. But I feel like it's really important for you to understand first what type of relationship you are. Okay, and for you, it's important to spot smoking guns very early on and treat them as deal breakers. Okay, effectively communicate your needs from day one. Do not wait until the end or till it's, you're halfway through. Subscribe to the belief that there are many, yes, many potential partners who could make you happy. Never take blame for anyone's offensive behavior. When someone acts inconsiderate or hurtful, be secure and acknowledge that it says a lot about the other person rather than you. Expect to be treated with respect, dignity, and love. Okay? So the anxious attachment, the avoidant attachment, they tend to have, as I said, deactivating strategies in order to not get too close. Okay? And you have to be discerning and recognizing that. Okay? Avoidant attachment style in people tend to be fascinating, those types of people, because they are the loners of the world. They are the people who say, I don't need anyone, or they're in relationships, but they're not deeply connected. They don't really make very strong bonds with the other person. Okay? But there's something about them, especially to an anxiously insecure attached person. There's almost this, gee, I wish I could be like that. Gee, I wish I could not get so deep into things. Gee, I wish I could not be so, not overthink about everything, or not worry about losing somebody. You know, there's a little bit of a, I don't want to say enviousness, but there is kind of like, you can learn a lot if you're anxiously attached from an avoidant, about scaling back your energy and not feeling so overwhelmed at times with people, where if there's a codependency issue and things like that. But I think it's really important for you to also know that avoidant attachment, someone with avoidant attachment style, it's not a healthy relationship. Okay? It has a tendency to be very damaging to relationships. Okay? Now there is a part that talks about, and I just want to show, I will say, and if I didn't say this yet, if you didn't hear me say this, avoidance and anxious attached styles tend to find each other often. They are the most common type of a relationship out there. Okay? And it's a little disheartening to think about it, but how many times do we have this runner chaser phenomenon happen all the time? It's always that, you may even have experienced where you start dating somebody and things are going really well, and then they just drop off the face of the earth, or they're just gone, or things are going well and you're communicating a lot and you're spending a lot of time with each other, and it feels like things are progressing, and then they're gone, or they just start pulling away, or they start pulling out. And then what happens is you will start calling more, or you want to get answers. You want to try to find out, but this person is disconnected in some way. And so then they start kind of giving you one-word answers. And you're like now questioning yourself. Did I say something wrong? What did I do? Now you're looking at yourself and you're trying to figure out how you can recover this, and some have even gone to great lengths where they will like change their hairstyle. They will do something different with their physique. Some will even start adapting to these behaviors themselves and start stifling themselves and say, oh, well, maybe I talk too much, or maybe I shouldn't share my emotions, and it actually can have a very depleting effect on your psyche and your soul when you're involved in a relationship like this, and especially if you identify yourself as having an anxious attachment. So the goal here is for you, when you're involved with someone who has an avoidant style, the goal is for you to step back, pull your energy back, and not blame yourself, You don't have to dim your light so that someone else can shine. The goal for you is to look inward and become or remain secure within yourself. Okay? Because that's an energy of being centered. When you are centered, then you are able to make decisions coming from a well-balanced place. If you're anxious, you're on the outskirts of yourself and you're grasping at straws, maybe trying to make a relationship work or trying to hang on to something, So it's a struggle. It's really a struggle. I'm trying to see, yes, Tracy. He comes back like gangbusters and within a week slowly starts again. Yes. So the avoidant partners, very much, they want love and they want that connection just as much as the anxious partners do, just as much as anybody does. And the thing about it, like I said, is that there's a strong fear of abandonment. The goal is not to change the other person. The goal is to remain centered yourself. So you will find that you've felt like you've become a revolving door for your partner, where they're in and out of the house, in and out of the house. They're here 1 minute and then they're gone, and then they're here the next minute and then they're gone. Rather than you leaving the house through the revolving door and chasing them down to drag them back in, you just stay where you are, And then at that point, if this person still keeps coming in and out, then you have to get yourself in a position to say, I'm sensing here that you are in and out a lot, and I feel like maybe it's a struggle for you to get close, or you have a fear of that. I'm not going to chase you down. I'm not going to force you, but I want you to know that at some point you're going to have to face yourself. At some point, will have to lock the door because I'm standing here in trying to be as safe and as secure as I can. I feel generally that when you get yourself into a more safer position where it's like a calm, safe space, like the temperance. You're balanced and you're in harmony with yourself. That actually can cause your avoidant to realize that you're not going to push them into opening up. You're not going to push them into any demands that you have, but you also have to ask yourself this one question: am I getting my needs met? Is this person who has an avoidant attachment style able to meet my needs? Right? Is this enough for someone to just come in and out of your life? That's definitely a question you have to start asking yourself. Okay. Let me see what else I can find here that we can talk about. It's interesting, and I implore you to take a look at the book. It's right there on the screen that you can read about. There's a little test in here. There's some tests that you can take as well to find out if what your attachment style is. I would bet most of you probably have anxious attachment style. Let me look at your questions here. So technically the avoidant creates the situationship, friend zone type scenario, wanting love but scared of it. That's exactly it. A lot of those friends with benefits relationships that are initially created are usually anxious attachment. People don't create them. Anxious attachments want to get married in 3 days. Friends with benefits relationships are generally created by avoidance, or I wouldn't say so much dismissives, maybe somewhat in there, but I feel like the dismissive avoidant is a little harsher because they're a bit more brutal. But yes, that's basically what it is, and that's why I always feel like if you have an avoidant attachment style yourself, you very well could probably handle a friends with benefits. Okay. And sometimes you might ask yourself, well, how are some people able to do that? Well, it's generally because of that. They don't get deeply involved. They're able to do that. The avoidant, the word avoidant for them is just synonymous with protection, protective mode, right? I'd say cats have avoidant attachment. Dogs have an anxious attachment. Cats have avoidant attachment. If we could look at it in any other kind of way, that would be the perfect way. Cats are very independent. Cats are very like, they're loners. They do their own thing. They come in when they want your love, and then they go peacefully off to do their own thing. They're very calm. Dogs are like, no, I gotta be up your ass, up your ass, up your ass. I want your love, I want your love. That's the anxious. I stopped chasing him a long time ago. You're currently in separation, 900 miles apart. I'm taking this alone time to go deep within and figure out if I still want a relationship with him. Okay. I think the one thing to leave out in the relationship is any type of criticizing. I'm trying to find other little things here that I can talk to you about when it comes to the avoidant. You know, it's like I said, avoidants just really have a great fear of abandonment. They have a fear of getting close. And so basically, I feel like they may have experienced closeness in a very crucial part of their life, and that closeness with a particular, could have been a caregiver, or maybe just the world, came crashing down on them, and they retreat. It's kind of like someone who's been through a war zone, that kind of energy. So here I'll give you a couple of things that you may be able to identify that your person, or if you meet someone new that might have an avoidant attachment style. Here's a few other things. And also, once you hear this stuff and you see that book, you might be very confused if you're in a relationship with an avoidant, and you might be taking things very personally. And it's not to say that maybe you have or you haven't hurt the other person. I mean, we are human, and there's a possibility that maybe there were some fights or some things that were said. But I feel like if you recognize some of these signs in someone that you're currently connecting with, or a spouse or a lover, dive a little bit deeper to try to see what exactly is going on in that connection. So here's some of the signs. Avoidance will always send mixed signals. Secure people will be reliable and consistent. Okay? Avoidants value their independence greatly. Secure people make decisions together. An avoidant devalues you or their previous partners. Okay? And devalue does not necessarily mean verbal abuse. Devalue could just be anything that leaves you with a feeling of you're not a priority. Okay? A secure person will be flexible in their view of relationships. Okay? An avoidant uses distancing strategies, whether emotional or physical. And a secure person communicates relationship issues well. So with an avoidant, using distancing strategies, emotional or physical, could be if there's an issue that needs to be discussed or talked about or sorted out, an avoidant will run from the they view it as confrontation. They view it as they're in trouble, or they take it all upon themselves that let's just keep everything surface and sweet. and then we won't have these problems. But they don't, it's kind of like they live in a child's mind, and they don't really understand that relationships require addressing issues together, whatever kind of issues there are. So an avoidant will have a tendency to say, oh, I can't talk right now, talk about it later, and then kick the can forward over and over again so as to avoid talking about it. Or they'll create some kind of strategy to distance themselves from, whatever the issue might be. An avoidant will emphasize boundaries in the relationship. Okay, so an example of that is where an avoidant will say, I have this big work project and I absolutely cannot bend on that. I may not even be able to call you. Or that's just one example. They will emphasize how important their boundaries are, and where a secure person in a relationship can reach a compromise during arguments or situations that are going on. Okay? In other words, they can give you feedback. They could say, okay, we have something we need to sort out, and they will reach some type of a compromise. They will put some kind of effort in to deal with an argument, or recognize that this is imperative to the relationship being successful, and that they will find a way. Where, again, an avoidant will emphasize real strongly that now they're not able to do that. They have something else going on, or we could talk about it later, or they just they do a lot of the putting off energy. Okay? An avoidant has an unrealistically romantic view of how a relationship should be. Okay? So they might have it in their head that it has to be their way and in their particular way. And so that kind of is like having the emperor in the reverse. That's kind of like a dictatorship in some way, my way or the highway kind of thing. They will dictate how the relationship will go, so that it will suit their needs. They have no other way to be in the relationship with you unless there's an element of they can avoid and run away whenever they feel uncomfortable. A secure person is not afraid of commitment or dependency. Okay? An avoidant is mistrustful. They fear being taken advantage of by their partner. And a secure person doesn't view relationships as hard work. Okay? The avoidant does. Definitely. They have a strong fear, of opening up and then someone taking advantage of them or being abandoned. They don't trust. They really have because they don't trust themselves. Okay? The avoidant has a rigid view of relationships and uncompromising rules. And again, that's that emperor in the reverse. That's that dictatorship. Okay? Where the secure person, closeness creates further closeness. Okay? So the avoidant has to have things a particular way, and they refuse to budge on their views and how they think or they want it to be. And it's very discouraging because you oftentimes could feel as if you are working for this person. They set the rules, they set the ground rules, and they refuse to bend on them. Again, it's a protective mode, okay, to create distance from becoming close. Okay, the avoidant during a disagreement needs to get away or explodes. And I think we talked about that, right? I don't know how this relates, but the secure person will introduce friends and family early on. But an avoidant, so during a disagreement, if there's a disagreement, like I said, there's a confrontation, and they gotta run. They run, or they make their excuses, or they turn around and they blow it up in your face and create this massive argument so as to derail you, and then they use that as an excuse why they have to get away because they can't deal with this arguing when they created the argument in the first place. Okay, that's a deactivating strategy from having to sit down and create a bond to resolve issues. Okay. The other thing an avoidant do, they never make their intentions clear at the start. They never, I'm going to repeat that, they never make their intentions clear from the start. And I know a lot of you will be calling me up for a reading, and the first thing you want to know is, and I see it in my chat too on Sundays, what does this person want from me? What do they want? Do they love me? Why are they here? Okay, that's because they are giving you mixed signals and they don't make their intentions clear. Where a secure person will naturally express their feeling for you. A secure person will naturally tell you right in the beginning what they intend, why they're with you, why they chose you, why they want to keep moving forward. Okay? So when you are in a relationship with someone, whether it's in the beginning or after some time, because you could have your avoidant partner say to you that they want to be with you and that they're interested in this, but they may be very vague as well. A lot of times an avoidant will say to you, well, we'll see where it goes. Like, that is such an avoidant statement, if ever there was one. When there's a connection that's being made and someone says, we'll see where it goes, they're basically telling you, I'm giving myself an out in case I start feeling like you're getting too close, and then I gotta run. A secure person is not about, it's not getting in a relationship to see how you're going to be. More so, they're sure of what they want. There's a purpose for dating. There's a purpose for being with you. And someone who's secure will meet you and say, well, I'd like to get to know you. And then at some point, they'll express to you exactly, they won't leave it open-ended and say, we'll see where it goes. It's too vague. A secure person will come to a place where they say, I really like you, and either one, I would like to go further and explore more with you, because my intention here is that I would like to be eventually in a committed relationship, or further than that, or I'm not really feeling this way, and I'm going to I'm going to sever the relationship, but I really enjoyed your company and I'm going to move on. You're not really, it's not what I'm looking for. You'll get an answer. You'll never have to be in a position where you have to question. An avoidant will always leave you in a position where you are questioning and constantly having to ask, where is this relationship going? What are we doing here? If you get yourself in a position where you have to ask your partner, what are we? It's because they're not making it clear and they have no intention to do so. Okay? You could lose so many years with someone like this. They're very indirect and very vague. An avoidant partner has difficulty talking, here we go, about what's going on between you, which is why you're asking, what are we? What's going on with us? Are we friends? Are we lovers? Are we friends with benefits? Are we in a relationship? I'm confused. They leave you lost on the highway with no signs of how to get off or where to go. A secure partner does not play games. Okay? This does not mean, and I have to say, look, I'm not a doctor. Your partner, this person could be a narcissist. They could, or they might not be. They might just have these avoidant traits, There's no sense in spending all of your time trying to diagnose someone fully. The point of this podcast here is for you to just recognize some of these signs, but at the end of the day, whether you're involved in a relationship with a narcissist or an avoidant or an anxiously attached or a securely attached, the question is, what's going on with you? Okay, because it does not really matter what your person is 100%. If you're not feeling well, if you're feeling abandoned, if you're feeling insecure in the relationship, you have to tend to your needs first. If your needs are not, your partner is not able to meet you halfway with your needs to be met. Okay, so the golden rules are this. No, I don't know that they're incapable to love. They could be on their own incapable to love. But avoidance and anxious type people wouldn't hurt to have a little bit of therapy. There's plenty of counselors out there or spiritual guidance to help with these things. I can tell you one thing. You can't fix this person, because even if you give them space, that's exactly what they want, is the space. And giving it to them would be good. But what they do with that space is really what matters. And if you give them space, don't gaslight yourself and think, well, I've given them plenty of space and now they're coming back, so maybe this time things will be different. No, if they haven't done the work to heal that you know about, then it won't be different. You'll just repeat the cycle again. And it's the same with the anxious attachment style. When you pull back, it's really important that you do a bit of self-discovery. I think it's possible. I think anything's possible, with spiritual healing, Scarlett. I do. But the golden rules here for you is in this relationship, number one, determine whether this person you're with seeks intimacy and closeness. Okay. The second is assess how preoccupied or distant they are with the relationship and how sensitive they are to rejection, or how sensitive or insensitive they are to the space you give. Okay. Don't rely on just one symptom of the avoidant. Look at various signs. Look at these signs. Okay. Assess your partner's reaction to effective communication. So when you want to have an effective conversation or to sort out some issues, does this person look like a deer in the headlights and then they run, make their excuses, or disappear? Is this, something that goes on with them? Listen and look for what your partner is not saying or doing. That's what you want to pay attention to. Don't look at what they are saying. Don't look at what they are doing. You want to look, in order to assess what their style is, look and see what they are not doing and what they are not saying, because that's how you can identify an avoidant. Is there a reason why, after being discarded, they try to tiptoe back in? Guilt, regrets? Well, because they don't want to lose you, but they do need a tremendous amount of space. I don't know that it would be guilt or regret. It really depends on the way after it depends on the breakup. So if you were the one to tell your avoidant partner that you're breaking up and you don't want to pursue the relationship anymore, they would probably be relieved, most likely. But if you ghost them and leave them no way to contact you, I wouldn't think that they would be relieved. I think that they would be scrambling and trying to figure out how to get you back, just to get you back in place. There is such a thing as easy, simple love, and that comes with learning to be more secure within yourself, right? And that's why we talk about the self-love and the self-healing. And so in this book here called Attached, there is a section on being a secure partner. And so I can give you a couple of things, what a secure partner looks like. Secure partners, first of all, the one thing is you'll feel safe. When you feel safe within yourself, you trust yourself, and you feel secure. A partner that you're with that is also secure, you will feel safe and secure in the relationship. not because they come in to rescue you, but because they come in secure and safe as who they are themselves, right? So it's just a default. So a secure person is reliable and consistent. Okay? A secure person makes decisions with their partner. A secure person has a flexible view of relationships versus just has a flexible view. It's kind of like they know that they're aware that a relationship could not work, and they're aware that a relationship could. So if they're aware that the relationship could work, they don't try to distance themselves from it. And if they're aware that it couldn't work, they don't feel unhappy if they're not in it anymore. They're very secure. A secure person communicates relationship issues well. They're not stifled. They feel confident and secure in expressing how they feel and what they think. A secure person is not afraid of commitment or dependency. They don't view relationships as hard work at all. They understand that closeness creates further closeness. They introduce family and friends early on. They naturally express feeling for you, and they don't play games. So they're very above board. Okay? No, a secure partner can be okay on their own, and they can also be okay in a relationship. Absolutely. Of course a secure person has feelings, and if a relationship is to end, of course they would be sad, but they wouldn't be grasping at straws to try to get it back. They would accept it a lot quicker. That kind of thing. A secure person who's secure in themselves has that confidence and says, basically, if a relationship ends, everybody has grief. Everybody has a period of turmoil when, love is lost. But they know that a secure person knows that they have themselves, and they know that at the end of the day, no matter what happens, they'll be okay. They've had some kind of self-soothing or good security in their life at some point. But I also believe that secure partners can be in a relationship with an anxious or an avoidant, and it can make them ill, and a secure person will be more inclined to see that right away because they're secure, and they will tend to deal with the issues a lot quicker. They won't run away, and they won't grasp at the relationship. They'll try to talk about it, but if they feel their partner is dismissing them, or if their partner is too insecure without them, then they will have a tendency to just say, I don't think this is going to work, and they'll wind up moving on. So yeah, it's a very interesting thing. I know sometimes my cards talk about the narcissism thing. I really try not to get too deep into that because I feel like that word gets thrown around so nonchalantly anymore. You might as well just say jerk, but I'd rather say maybe spiritually disordered. I think that might be the better, but I can't. The card's already chosen. So when someone's secure, they'll understand and do what's best for their partner. When someone's anxious, we're not going to get into the anxious. I'll get into the avoidant. If someone's avoidant, they'll feel very uncomfortable with increased intimacy. And they will respond in one of following ways. They'll either say, you're too sensitive, you're too demanding, or you're too needy. They'll say, I don't want to talk about it. They'll tell you to stop analyzing everything. They'll say, what do you want from me? I didn't do anything wrong. They will consider your needs on a certain matter only to disregard them again very soon after. Or they'll say, gee, my gosh, I already said I was sorry. So I feel like those might be some of the things that you could have dealt with or could be dealing with in a relationship with an avoidant. There's just an extreme anxiety about getting close. And the fearful or the anxious attachment has extreme anxiety about having distance. And that's why the energy, the runner chaser, that's how that dynamic develops. So what do? You stop chasing if you're anxious, and you stop running if you're avoidant. And you both meet halfway in the middle, but you stay steady. You both become secure. So if you were to end your relationship with your partner, because whether you want to call them anxious or avoidant, if you were to end the relationship with them, then you would just say, I'm ending the relationship because I don't feel safe. And your partner could say to you, well, how can I make you feel safe? And you would say to them, become a safe person. And then the rest, they have to discover on their own. But you have to take care of yourself at the end of the day. Okay? You have to do, you have to get your needs met in a way that's going to make you feel strong and secure within yourself. Because like I said, you also could be secure going into a relationship and find yourself becoming insecure because of the relationship, because of your partner's attachment style. You won't feel that way with a securely attached person. Okay? You'll feel safe with them. And I know if you can think of some of the people in your life or throughout your life that you had that good, safe sense about them. The ones who are secure and the ones who are not. You could also probably think of people in your life who are very avoidant. Some of you could have been your fathers. Well, your fathers were very avoidant. They didn't come home a lot. They were always working. They spent very little time or minimal time with you. For some, it could even be your mothers. Dependency is not a bad thing. Dependency is necessary in a healthy relationship. Being able to depend on each other in a deep relationship is very important. And when you become a secure person, if you have children, they become secure, or even if they're grown, when you start displaying secure behaviors in your life within yourself, people feel like they can trust you, they want to be around you, you're consistent, they know what to predict. Sure, crazy can be attractive, but not for long term. Not for long term. So you have to get to a place now where you have to ask yourself, okay, what is this? Is my partner avoidant? I would not get down deep into, your partner is avoidant because of you. Okay, don't go down that road. Your partner, understand, most likely came into the relationship this way long before you ever knew them. Okay, and usually to create such a strong dynamic of being avoidant, that tends to come from possibly childhood or some very deep seated issue that caused the avoidant at one time were able to trust, and then this would be a pretty profound type of thing for that to happen, but it's a deep rooted dynamic, but it can be healed. It definitely can be healed. There's plenty of counselors or therapists or people out there who know a lot about this, and it's really just about learning to trust yourself, and if they are willing to take the steps, it's not an overnight thing, but I believe that things can be healed. Okay, so if you guys want to ask me some questions about what we were talking about, we could do that for a little bit, and then afterwards I'm just going to leave the stream run. If you guys just want to chit-chat amongst yourselves, we can do that. Oh, I forgot I had a cup of coffee here. Tracy says, he is very scared. He's only had himself to depend on. He's afraid if he lets me in and I abandon him, it will ruin him. And you know what's funny about that, Tracy? I mean, it takes time for someone who's an avoidant to be able to trust, because they have very deep-rooted issues with trusting. And if you were to stick it out in some way or another, become secure, he could warm up a bit more, but at times during the process, he will retreat a lot. It takes a really long time. And you guys, like, everybody's situation's different. You kind of have to ask yourself, how much time do I have? It's not even, I mean, yes, it's about love. And if you love that person, of course, but it doesn't hurt to try to redirect your person. If this is someone that you know, this is your person for life, it doesn't hurt to redirect them gently into maybe looking into this themselves and getting some help. But if they're not willing to even make any kind of effort, even if they picked up a book, anything, then you really have to get yourself to a position where you have to ask yourself, is this going to work for me? Right? Yes, it's a very slow process. Darren says, Kelly, difference between dependent and codependent. Okay. It's interesting you asked that question, Darren, because in this book, attached, there is a section here. It's called the Myth of Codependency. Here it is. Let me see what it says here. So, codependent means being too enmeshed with the other person, and you must learn to set better boundaries. Says if you develop a strong dependency on your partner, you're deficient in some way and are advised to work on yourself to become more differentiated and develop a greater sense of self. The worst possible scenario is that you will end up needing your partner, which is equated with addiction to him or her, and addiction, we all know, is a dangerous prospect. And while the teachings of codependency movement remain immensely helpful in dealing with family members who suffer from substance abuse, as was the initial intention, they can be misleading and even damaging when applied indiscriminately to all relationships. So it seems to me like maybe codependency has more to do with a person that has an external addiction that you are competing with. But I feel like if you are in a relationship with someone, I don't feel like, unless there's that dynamic playing out, dependency is necessary for a relationship to work, because it's trust building and it's a bond where we rely on each other. Pablo says, I need to rewind and listen. Again, this will be my workout too. That's awesome, Pablo. Okay. Let's see. Thank you, Joanne. And Max says, can an anxious attachment and get so damaged by an avoidant attachment that they become avoidant themselves? Yes, absolutely. And I said that in the very beginning, that an anxious attachment will often reach out to try to salvage and bring the avoidant inward to them. And the more that the avoidant runs from that, the more the anxiously attached person will then say to themselves, they'll begin to stifle their natural, it's hyper attachment for the anxiously attached, but then they will tend to resort back to stifling and not reaching out at all because of the fear and not expressing themselves, and then they become avoidant themselves. That's why it's really important, if you identify as an anxious attachment style, to become secure within self. And that will take, depending on the level of the depth of your anxiety, that could take a deep therapy, or it could take maybe just a few things for you to understand and just start implementing changes. You are so welcome, B-Mac. Lee Campos, I have healed and love myself today that I'm learning to put up healthy boundaries. That's good. Fear definitely can hold people hostage, TJ. It's so true. Yeah, it's kind of like a child with a parent. When a child needs to depend on the parent, in order to understand that it's safe to go out there into the world. That's what we do for each other in love partnerships. We're there. We have each other's back. We provide a soft place for our partner to land that says, hey, I got you. You know what I always think about? It's crazy. My favorite movie of all time, right, was Jerry Maguire. Don't ask me why. I don't even know. It's such an old movie, and I watch it every Christmas. And I don't know why, I just do. So there's a scene I'm sure you guys are familiar with this. There's a scene in Jerry Maguire. The Cuba Gooding Jr. plays a football player, and his wife they're in the scene throughout the movie. And the way they are with each other, the way they have each other's back, supporting one another, being there, standing up for each other, that's creating intimacy and a deep, deep bond. And that can be very scary because it almost seems like it's so far off in another world, but finding a healthy partner, you will attract a healthy partner, a secure partner when you become secure. Most anxiously attached people tend to attract avoidance, and most avoidants tend to go for anxiously attached types. It's crazy, but because of the dynamic, that roller coaster, so it's a very interesting dynamic. We want to kill the runner chaser thing, Yeah, it does. Dependency is very healthy. Dependency is very good. We like dependency. We like being able to come home or talk to our partner and tell them and know that we can depend on them to listen and maybe to give positive feedback. We like to be able to have someone in our lives that we can come home to, that we feel safe, and then we can just be ourselves, be our true, authentic selves, where there's no filters and there's no eggshells. Dependency is a wonderful, beautiful thing. We don't want to be dependent on alcohol or drugs or sex or any of that stuff. We want to be dependent on healthy relationships. But healthy relationships have to also be created, and it starts with two secure people, right? So a lot of tidbits in there about the avoidant, and if you are able to get yourself to understanding what a securely attached person looks like and striving to get yourself to be more securely attached, especially if you were in a relationship with someone who was unhealthy, whether they were anxiously attached or avoidant type, you still, at the end of the day, want to get yourself securely attached within self. Because a lot of you, probably have dealt with some traumatic things in your life as well that need a lot of healing. So yeah, that's what everyone's looking for. If he's cheating on me with someone, will he be the same way with her? Do you mean if your partner is cheating on you with another person, will he cheat on them? You're welcome, Vlad. I feel like cheating could also be a deactivating strategy. It really, though there's so many variables and dynamics that come with that, it really just depends. But I can tell you that I'm always telling him, be authentic with yourself, tell the truth about what it is you want. Well, I believe that the best way to deal with people is by showing them who you are and not telling them who they should be. Right? Because we are not, even though Virgos especially tend to be the healers of the zodiac, and we tend to go with the whole let me fix it, show what you're trying to sell rather than tell people what you're trying to sell. Because I feel like, and even in your relationships, be an example of what you're trying to tell other people, and people will believe you. They'll be more convinced than, and even your partner, will be convinced that you are what you are trying to get them to be. They need to see it, so especially women will have a tendency to write those long letters and tell their partner how they need to fix this and what they need to do, and telling them how they need to change and this is how their life could be better and all that. And I mean, not necessarily women, I guess men do it too, but I can only speak for women because I'm a woman. But I think that is really, you might as well just be giving him a self-help book, and a self-help book does shit for anybody who's not willing to look at themselves. So just be the example that you want to set. Show yourself, show people, show your partner, show your lovers, be secure. Telling other people that they need to be more secure. I mean, I think if somebody asks, or if you really care about someone and you want to help, offering gentle guidance is always good in a relationship, of course. But if you feel like you're dealing with someone who's like a deer in the headlights and constantly running away, the more letters you write, the more love you give, the more gifts, appreciation, all that overload is just going to keep them at distance. You need to regroup, resettle back within yourself, and you can love your person, but you need to be loving yourself first. You got to keep yourself a priority no matter what type of relationship you're in. Will he have the same detached energy he gives to his person? If he is Ms. Allen, if he is an avoidant, if he has a very strong avoidant attachment, he will continue that in all of his relationships, unless there's some type of intervention or somebody says something to him, or it's shown to him, or he comes to terms with himself, how he's living his life. Otherwise, he will continue to do that with the next one and the one after that. And if you know him, you will see that he's in and out of relationships in his life, or he has a lot of surface relationships, or he has a lot of, friends with benefits kind of situations, or he's short-term relationships, or he dates around. He might even have like a serial dating kind of thing going on, and that's why I say there's tremendous amount of avoidant attachment style types on those dating apps. And if you are an anxious attachment style type, probably not good for you to be on there, because it's just going to increase your anxiety even more and more when you get connected. Most people who want to have long distance relationships to start off that way, that's a deactivating strategy. And I talked about that, and you'll have to go back and listen again. Most people who have avoidant, they get on those dating apps, they start off long distance, are generally going to keep it that way. Exception to the rule, there are some securely attached people on there, but most of them on there are in that, okay, well, we're long distance. They've already started the relationship by creating distance. So don't go down that road with these visions of grandeur that this person, keep it real within yourself, and ask yourself, if you meet someone who's very, very far away from you, ask yourself, why are they seeking relationships with people who are thousands or like on a completely different continent? That's a red flag. Where are the dating sites where you find mentally healthy people? I don't know. I mean, I'm not necessarily saying dating sites have no mentally healthy people. I feel like you have to be really discerning, and you gotta really like ask a lot of questions and, check things out. I was with an avoidant for a long time, and I had no idea this person was avoidant. And it took me a long time to learn. And when I finally learned, I was like, oh, I see. It really doesn't have anything to do with me. So the relationship never got better, but it really doesn't have anything to do with me. It's the way that person came into the relationship from the beginning. There's nothing, I can't fix childhood trauma issues or things like that, or however somebody's parents were, you know. And at that point, I was like, I gotta let this go because it's just not gonna happen. What are some things you can do when you know you're anxious to pull back so your avoiding person comes forward? What are some things you can do when you know you're anxious to pull back so your avoiding person comes forward? I'm not really sure I understand that question, Tracy. Sorry. Maybe, oh yeah, other distancing strategies are also filters on photos. Fear of being seen in a particular way. Or always wearing I mean, these are all psychological things, but I can't say for sure because I know, I'm a woman. I like to wear makeup, but I think that excessive amount of makeup can bring people in, but it also it's kind of a passive aggressive thing. It can draw people to you, but it can also, there are women out there I know that they will go to sleep with caked on makeup, and they will wake up and put more caked on makeup. They won't take their makeup off generally for anybody. They don't like to be seen without it, and that's kind of a distancing. We all have insecurities, and we all, like I said, you're not a narcissist if you're like a woman who doesn't want to get in a bikini. You're creating a distance strategy there because you don't want anyone to see a specific thing because you don't feel like you don't want to be judged, or if you have cellulite or stretch marks or things like that. It doesn't make you like an avoidant, but the avoidant thing is like all across the board in the relationship. It's not, it's like truly just a running away. It's a runner energy. What can I do to pull back so my person comes forward? It's very hard for me. Oh, well, there's a flaw in your sentence there, Tracy, because you're manipulating the situation. What can I do? Basically, what you're asking is, obviously you're anxiously attached because a person who has anxious attachment style would ask that particular question. So what you're basically asking is, what can I do to get my person to come forward? So that's you doing something, and that's what an anxiously attached person would do, is to try to create a way to pull their person back towards them. And so when we talk about the anxiously attached on Wednesday, I'll explain a lot more about that, because what you don't want to do is coerce or try to pull anyone towards you. You want people to come towards you by their own will and naturally, right? And if it's very hard for you to be alone, or it's not to be alone, you may feel like being without your partner is anxiety inducing and very alone, and will cause you to feel alone, but that's just fear. Probably, I guess, yeah, you're right, Kels. Like, the best thing you can do is focus on becoming more secure within yourself if you feel like you are anxiously attached. So there's plenty of videos on YouTube. There's plenty of books. There's plenty of articles on the internet on how to become a safe, secure person. And that basically is just all about healing that which made you anxiously attached, right? It's kind of like self-soothing, learning to self-soothe. The anxiously attached person needs to learn how to soothe themselves. It's like when you're anxious or you're stressed, you're having anxiety. Some people run to a pill or they run to a drink, but it's most healthy if you can take control of your faculties and take control of your mind. Your mind's very powerful and it's not in charge of you. You are in charge of it. And if you can get yourself into a position to control the mind control, to calm yourself, that's self-soothing, that's self-love, the self-healing. Yeah, I mean, who's perfect, right? Some of you may even be anxiously attached and find yourself at times to be in an avoidant phase, and exactly, M. Kelly, that's what it is. It's shadow work, and the last thing you want to do is avoid the rest of your life another person, because how will you ever know if you've healed from your anxiety or your avoidance if you're never in a relationship again? So you don't want to get yourself in a position where, I'm so anxious I can't be in a relationship, so now I'm just going to avoid for the rest of my life. You don't want to do that either. You got to find that sweet spot and that balance. Put all the energy you give to him on yourself. Well, I mean, it's really just about getting yourself secure, because the one thing the avoidant does not want is for you to abandon him. In her particular case here, they don't want to be abandoned, which is probably why they keep coming back. So it's not like, I would say put most of your energy into yourself and still love that person in the way, if you intend to stay with them, to not overlove, but to tend to them the way you would a flower, right? When you have a flower growing, you don't want to overwater your flowers, or they will be gone. And if you give them too little water or none, then they will be gone. So you want to give them just the right amount, but the majority of your focus is on you, because once you finish watering your flowers, you go back and do what you need to do, right? Setting up good boundaries, yeah. Do you guys feel like you are more interested in hearing about the avoidant or the anxious or the secure? Like, where do you lean the most? Are they aware they're like this? Or is this some type of illness they developed? Do they want to be this way? I mean, some could be aware. Some people aren't aware, especially if this is something that was developed in childhood. It may just be the way they've lived their lives. They may not be aware. It might just be natural for them. They're aware that closeness and vulnerability scares the heck out of them. They're aware of their, the avoidant feels anxiety, and they also feel love. It's just that when they get too close, they get anxious. And for the anxious, when there's too much distance, they get anxious, right? So they're not, avoidants are not stone cold robots by any stretch of the imagination. They have very deep feelings. They love very deeply. They just fear the intimacy and the closeness. Some avoidants can be wonderful people, just amazing people. They can be very kind and supportive and loving, but they have a limit. Okay, M. Kelly wants to understand the avoidant. Tracy says the avoidant. Pablo, I'm secure enough to avoid my anxious. That's awesome. Both are equally interesting. I agree. Could be a trauma response. Absolutely. He's avoidant. You're smart and have lived. I have. I sure have. So yeah, I feel like we've touched on a lot, and I think that if there's anything you could do for yourself going forward after knowing this, is maybe do a little bit of reading about that or watch some videos. There's plenty of videos out there, because I feel like, at the end of the day, it's really about you and how you feel and what you want in your life and what you need, what's going to work for you. And the more secure you become, the more you're able to spot the anxious or the avoidant type of attachments in people, right? So there's nothing but education is power, yeah, so I think that's about it. I actually was only going to talk for an hour, but an hour and a half seems to be better. So Wednesday, I'm gonna leave the stream running for you guys. All right, if you want to stay in here and chit chat and talk, what do you think? Should I not? I might leave it run. Maybe I'll leave it run for like a couple hours. If you guys want to just continue your conversation with each other, you're welcome, Joanne. But Wednesday we're going to talk about the anxious. And then on Friday we will talk about the securely attached and how that looks and what that looks like. All right. And then Saturday I'm going to do a podcast. I intend to, but I'm not. That's kind of going to be fluid. I'm not exactly sure. I will. Blue Lotus, he's anxious now. He's called me 2 times in 5 minutes. Will keep calling me. Ugh, my boundaries are up, not answering. Oh, yeah. See, the dance gets played, Blue Lotus. Sometimes there's, the more you pull away from the avoidant, then they become anxious to try to get the relationship back, and then they get it back, and you overgive or you give, and then they pull away again. You just have to stay very secure. You cannot answer the phone because he's anxious, because you're worried that he'll explode. You have to just stay secure. I'm probably going to do something on my, where I have my bookings for you guys to go more into depth. Maybe that might help you if you want to get some sessions with how to deal with the anxious and the avoidance style. We'll see how that works out. But so so when I leave him, will this make him worse? Not necessarily. If you tell him you don't want to do the relationship anymore, he'll probably be okay with it. If he's an avoidant type, he'll probably be all right with it. He'll probably say, okay, take care. I wish you all the best. That will give him exactly what he wants if you express that. Now, if you just disappear on him with no warning or nothing, it could cause him to scramble and get anxious and worried and try to return and grab a hold of the relationship again. But it could take a while, a real long time, right? So, generally, remember, avoidance, they want love, but they're not as keen on being in relationships as the anxious. It's not really something they need. They want the love. They want to be appreciated and loved, but they're okay to be without it. Kel, you must be trouble for any guy. They won't get away with much. You will have them all figured out. I know. I'm too smart for... I think I'm just too smart for anybody. Not necessarily, because when love walks in, all logic and common sense tends to walk out, doesn't it, Tracy? That's the wonderful thing about love. That's what makes it so amazing and so great, is when we lose our minds and our common sense and we just take that risk and go and have fun. I mean, if we're just too logical and cerebral in our relationships, I mean, boring. You're welcome, sweetheart. I'm glad that I was able to do this. I already know so much about toxic love. I want to learn what healthy, secure love should look like. Yeah, we should focus on that. We talk a lot about the toxicity in relationships, don't you? I do. BMAC, I do. I was just thinking today, if I could just have it. I was married to a tech guy for like 10 years. We were together like 12 years. He was all tech. And one time I did something on his computer, and he was like, how did you know how to do that? And I was like, I learned it by watching you. And I'm very techie myself, but yeah, I need another one, that's for sure. Someone that can like sit down and be like, okay, well, this is how this works and this is how that works. But anyway, enough about me. I enjoyed the chat. Yes, I will be back on Wednesday, 7 p.m. Eastern, 6, 5, and 4, all through the previous time zones. All right, you guys, here in the U.S. So I'll put up the link there for the upcoming next one, and we'll talk about the anxiously attached. Keep that in your mind, your schedule. And Friday we'll talk about the securely attached and what that type of relationship looks like. All right, so I'm going to leave the chat up for I guess another hour. You guys can chit chat away, and then I will see you at 10:30 this evening, or in 2 hours for tonight's love reading. Okay, so have an awesome evening. I will talk day, greetings, morning, wherever you are, and I will talk to you guys later. All right, take care. Bye.